Excellent. Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started in about a minute or two. We just want to allow some of our participants to start logging into the Zoom. My name is Alfred Ayub. Today, we are going to be discussing Columbia Climate School and specifically highlighting the Masters of Art in Climate and Society for students that are enrolled in the HEC Masters in Management program interested in a double degree journey with us. And in fact, I'm really excited. We have two current MA Climate and Society students who are also HEC students in the Masters in Management program joining us. So we'll be introducing them shortly as well. But again, welcome everybody who is joining us today. And while we are waiting for additional registrants to attend, I always like to do a shameless audio check. If you want to, in the Q&A function, type in where you're joining us from. Although I have a feeling most of you guys are joining us from Paris. But some of you might be doing internships in exciting locations around the world. So if you want to go ahead and just type in the Q&A, which region you're joining us from, that would be super helpful. And I'm based here in New York, as is everybody on camera right now. Oh, Kristen, welcome to the session. Thank you so much for joining in Santiago, Chile at a conference. That's brilliant. Kristen's with the HEC team, so I'm so glad you're able to join. Let's see where else we have. Joining from Paris, welcome, Lucy. I saw that you just registered, Lucy. I'm so glad. Welcome. Excellent. Paris as well. Excellent. Well, we have 3 continents represented in the Zoom room today. Sophie, also from Paris. Brilliant. Okay, well, excellent. Welcome everybody to the session. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So again, I'm Alfred Ayub. I am on the admissions team here at Columbia Climate School, and we're going to be detailing the Masters of Arts in Climate and Society program for everybody joining us today. Just to give you a brief overview of the agenda, we are going to give a kind of a broad description of Columbia Climate School. We're going to dive into our student profile. So who are the current students learning at Columbia Climate School? We'll also detail the curriculum of the MA Climate and Society program, along with the summer capstone opportunity. And then we will detail our professional development, financial aid, and then finally conclude with the application process for those of you that are interested in applying to the MA Climate and Society program. First, I would like to also welcome our student guest speakers. I'm really excited to share with you that we have 2 current MA Climate and Society students joining us today, both of whom are HEC students enrolled in the Masters in Management program. They opted to join the MA Climate and Society program as a double degree option. So joining us first is Emma Gugliotta, as well as Leonie Chalochet. Both are going to be graduating in 2025, so next year. And I'd like to go ahead and pause and allow, if we could begin with you, Emma, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your academic background, kind of your experience in the Masters in Management program and your decision to transition to the climate school. If we could learn a little bit more about you, Emma.
Yes, so hi everyone. My name's Emma, and I'm a current double degree student, I should say, in Climate and Society at Columbia. So I would say for as long as I can remember, climate has always been in my life, both when I would be lectured by my dad if I wasn't like recycling properly or just switching off the lights when I was leaving a room. And then when I first started understanding and getting interested in the sectors both my mom and dad are working in, one is in climate litigation and the other one is actually in the renewable energy production. But I still decided to proceed and study finance, which some people would say is not very related to climate. I graduated with a bachelor in finance at Bocconi University in Italy. And then I realized at a really later stage in my life that I needed more purpose beyond numbers and understanding how the world's economy work. And probably exactly because I specialized my education and understanding the world's economy, I then realized there's something wrong with it that needs to be addressed if we want to continue grow without hindering our future. This is why I specialized also last year during my gap year in working in sustainability, both in consulting and corporate, and why I urged to enter the climate school, because I strongly believe this school allows for a deep understanding of the climate crisis, not only in relationship to businesses, which is of course, and was of course my main purpose, but in relation to everything that is actually happening in the world, and that gives you a much broader overview, but at the same time, a profile that is literally non-comparable to any other in the climate industry, whether you want to work in finance, business, or justice. I truly believe this is going to give you such a great strength to go into this world.
Excellent. Thank you, Emma. I really appreciate it. And Leonie?
Yes, hi everyone. So my name is Leonie. I'm also in the dual degree. And like Emma, I've always been interested in sustainability and how to integrate like considerations in any activities. So I've did a bachelor in mathematics and economics, and then I joined HEC to have the business perspective. But I've always seen all this as a tool to like have an impact and give some purpose by working in relation with climate and sustainability. So I also did internships in finance, one in an ESG team for financial markets and the other in like an infrastructure fund for the energy transition. So always at the crossroad between financing, which is sometimes seen as not aligned, but also like it's an important lever and a useful tool to achieve the transition. So that's the reason I decided to join the climate school, basically.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. And so I want to emphasize that Emma and Leonie will both be sharing perspectives throughout the presentation, and we're also going to have toward the end an open Q&A. So stay tuned. They have definitely more to share about thoughts on the program and their experiences thus far. So in terms of Columbia Climate School itself, I always like to anchor everybody kind of in a kind of a basic understanding of our history. Many might say it's a very recent history, but we actually have a very long-standing history in the climate space. I'll first begin with Columbia University history a little bit more broadly. So when you refer to Columbia University, you're referring to a major research institution, arguably a blueprint for research institutions here in the United States and around the world. We are the fifth oldest university here in the US, the oldest in the state of New York. And when you refer to Columbia University, you're referring to kind of an umbrella term that falls over 20 different schools, most of those schools being professional schools within Columbia University. So think of like Columbia Law School, Columbia Business School. We have Columbia's School of International and Public Affairs, Columbia's Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation. The list goes on. And the newest school within Columbia University is Columbia Climate School. It was announced in 2020 and formally launched in 2021. And this program specifically, or I should say the school specifically, launched with the MA in Climate and Society program, the program with which we are focusing on today, again, the Masters of Arts in Climate and Society. But to give you an idea of our ethos at the Climate School, and both Emma and Leonie definitely highlighted this in their description of why they're interested in climate and the idea of this interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary experience. Our ethos is very much the world requires knowledgeable leaders to work with businesses, communities, governments, and civil society to address the climate crisis. Columbia Climate School's graduate degree programs and other learning opportunities provide that interdisciplinary knowledge base for climate leaders with diverse interests and backgrounds. And we can't emphasize that enough. We are bringing individuals together from our faculty perspective, as well as from our student perspective, from a wide variety of backgrounds. And you're going to see that when we talk a little bit more about the MA Climate and Society community. Yes, many of you joining the call today, you're going to come in with that business lens, but you're also going to have individuals in this cohort that are interested in climate with a policy lens, maybe climate with a science lens, and specifically, maybe carbon capture technology. So it's a very, very diverse audience, and we need that diversity because the climate crisis affects various aspects of our lives, and we need that interdisciplinary approach to tackling it. in terms of kind of this long-standing history, so you're going to say, Alfred, you mentioned that, but then you said the climate school was announced in 2020. Well, within Columbia Climate School is something called Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. And Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, in fact, Leonie and I were just there this past weekend, is a 189-acre research campus that falls within Columbia University. It's been with us for over 75 years within the university. It's officially a part of the climate school. There's over 350 PhD fellow researchers there. Many of our research labs are based there as well. Some of our students are actually performing research assistantships there. And, you know, the reason why I highlight Lamont is one of our Lamont professors in the 1970s is the first person to coin the term global warming as it relates to climate change in the 1970s. The first academic paper that coined the term global warming is a Lamont research professor that coined that term. Also, Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory researchers there are the first scientists to have correctly predicted models relating to El Nino weather events. So we have a long-standing history at Columbia University as it relates to studying and understanding climate change. Now I'm going to transition to discussing specifically the degree program that you would be interested in as Masters in Management students with an eye for the double degree, and that's the Masters of Arts in Climate and Society. So this is a STEM designated degree program. This is very important to emphasize that if you are a prospective student that would be coming to this program on an F1 designated student visa, STEM designation allows you an opportunity potentially to remain in the United States for 3 years postgraduate degree to work here. It is a 1-year, 35 credit, again, interdisciplinary graduate program that trains professionals and academics to understand and address the impacts of climate variability and change on society and the environment. Through classes and research, students gain knowledge in the physical and social sciences and the humanities as they relate to climate. And how do we do that? How do we bring this diverse audience together? Actually, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let me now highlight who the current students are in the program. So Emma and Leonie are members of a student cohort of roughly 120 plus graduate students in the MA Climate and Society. Approximately 40% of the students are international students. They represent 23 countries of citizenship. And among our US students, 18 states are represented. Something we're also very proud of is approximately 15% of the students are the first in their family to attend college. We call those students here in the United States first generation college students. And the average age in the cohort is 26 years old. In terms of the academic backgrounds, approximately 2/3 of the students that join the MA Climate and Society are students that specifically have social science backgrounds. So maybe you were an economics major or political science major. You could have we also lump in there undergraduate business majors. So if you studied finance, for example, we would classify you within that social science lens. And then about 1/3 of the students are coming to the program with more of a classic STEM background. So think of it environmental sciences or natural sciences, also engineering student audience. But again, the majority of students entering this program have that social science background. And then in the MA Climate and Society program, I mentioned it's a 1-year program. It's 3 semesters in length. You begin in the fall semester with what's called the Climate Core, which we are going to detail shortly. Also associated with that is an applied climate experience in your first semester. We also will then have a continuation of the Climate Core, followed by the elective journey. And then in the summer semester, it will be a combination of electives as well as a capstone experience, which is a consulting capstone that occurs specifically with an organization, and you're working in a group project to address a climate-related need. We will touch on the capstones as well shortly. But in terms of I mentioned the makeup of the MA Climate and Society program being extremely diverse. Again, Leonie and Emma have this more of this business lens or a finance lens, ESG investing lens. But in that program, in that cohort, you'll also be sitting side by side with individuals who might be interested in, I mentioned climate policy and perhaps working at the United Nations or working in local government. We also have individuals that are very much interested in the climate science aspect and maybe carbon management technology. So, or working in disaster management or perhaps climate in the built environment, thinking about kind of an architecture lens when it comes to climate. So it really does run the gamut. The one element that connects all of you in the cohort together is this through line of the climate core, the idea of regardless of your education background or your career goal ambitions or the sectors that you are targeting, you should all have this kind of core understanding of climate change and how it impacts society and the methods to address it. So in next year's climate core, we are going to include a climate justice theory, practice and policy course. Interestingly, this is going to be a new addition to the climate core, although thankfully, I believe Emma mentioned that she's taking climate justice as an elective course. So I'd love to hear Emma's thoughts on that. And bearing in mind how important climate justice is, that the climate crisis affects different communities, and oftentimes the least resource communities are the ones most greatly impacted by climate change. So that's why climate justice next year will become a part of the core. We also have the history of the climate crisis as a new addition. And then courses that are always within our portfolio and pillars of addressing climate change is climate change mitigation, as well as climate change adaptation. These two courses are a part of the core. And then finally, the reason why this program is STEM designated is because we do have two classically, I would say, challenging but very rewarding courses built within the curriculum. One is Dynamics of Climate Variability and Change. And this is largely a physics class, but this is the class that I always like to say, whenever somebody stops you on the street and says to you, do you believe in climate change? And if your response is yes, and then they ask you the why, you will be able to scientifically translate for them the why. And you'll be able to do that with various constituents with varying understandings of the science behind climate change. So that's the dynamics course. And then the final course, and I always call this the climate jobs class, is quantitative models for climate application. This is going to be a climate data course. As many of you as business students can understand and recognize and truly appreciate, data is driving our everyday lives. Understanding we're collecting the data. Now we need to understand how to make decisions based on the data, and specifically how to translate this data for decision makers as well. So this is going to be all about climate data and telling a story based on that data using the computer program language R. I'd love to now pause, and I would love to now loop back in Emma and Leonie. If you could share with me, I know that this is your first semester in the program, so we haven't had a chance to tackle all of these courses yet, but I know that you've completed dynamics, or you're completing dynamics, and you're completing the climate change adaptation course, and you might have some perspective on climate justice. I'd love to hear your thoughts thus far on the core. If perhaps Emma, we could begin with you.
Of course. Okay, so in terms of the core, I believe that that's one of the strengths for sure of the climate school, is allowing you to have a broad overview of the climate crisis, as I was saying before. You're not just talking about mitigation or adaptation, but you are looking at everything. I'm particularly interested in the climate justice course because it's something that felt very further away from what I was interested in. I am interested in the energy transition and more related, of course, to the business and finance part of it all. But when I stepped into the climate justice course, which by the way is also taught by one of the best professors probably in the country, an amazing woman, Sheila Foster, I understood that whatever I was doing, even if I thought at the beginning was also very important and that for sure it will help tackle the climate crisis, had also very big implications on the human side of it all, which is extremely important to consider. Even if you want to go into renewables, we think everything is amazing in renewables, but then what about land use? What about the communities that are displaced because of the renewables deployment? So I feel like this complements for sure anything I was interested in. And in terms of climate change adaptation, I feel like there's no need to say how important it is because we always talk about mitigation and adaptation in every climate change conversation we have. And then in terms of dynamics, and I'm sure Leonie will agree with me, I feel like it's hard because, of course, if you haven't studied physics since your high school years or you've never done it, for sure it's challenging. But at the same time, I was so surprised in how important it is to understand the physics behind it all, and also how supportive the professors, the TAs are, and you understand everything that you're not getting from the course. It's been a great experience if I hadn't studied physics since high school.
Excellent. Thank you, Emma. And Leonie, can you share a little bit about your thoughts on the climate so far?
Yeah, I've only had the change adaptation and dynamics for now, but both are really interesting. Like we can see on this slide how interdisciplinary the program is, and in my opinion, it's really an advantage of like studying in this master's degree. Climate change adaptation, of course, super important, super interesting. I guess since I had a more like mathematics and economics background, this is the one that could be more challenging for me because I don't have necessarily the policy background and the knowledge, but it's going well and super interesting. And in terms of dynamics, as Emma said, the professors are super supportive and they're really available if you need anything. So that's a great advantage also. But I honestly think that with the quantitative courses at HEC, like everyone on this webinar should be more or less okay with the course. Like it's one of the most challenging in the cohort, but because of the very, very diverse background that we have and students that haven't done any math in the past years. So don't be too stressed about it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Leonie. Thank you. And so in terms of another aspect, and I am going to loop back in now, Emma and Leonie, because I think it's the most exciting aspect is kind of understanding how you approached your elective journey. So one thing I like to highlight is the fact that Columbia Climate School, I joined in March of 2022, and every single year we only increase the number of electives. In fact, the first year I joined, I think there was only 3 electives, and now there's likely over 20 electives that were going to be offered this year, which we're very excited about. And in terms of these electives, they really run the gamut. You can see politics of climate in Asia, food systems and climate interactions, climate change and disaster management, climate change and law and policy. Again, this is just a sample. Climate mobility, for example, of climate school electives that you are going to have access to explore. But I always like to emphasize that the climate school is extremely thoughtful when it does come to offering electives, and oftentimes they're very thoughtful about complementing electives, let's say in the same semester, or building off of the electives with each other. So I think this semester in particular is such an exciting opportunity because in the fall, we are now offering 2 very specific climate finance electives that I think will be resonating with everybody in the audience that is a business school student, certainly. One is financing renewable energy. And I would say this is more of that kind of, and actually Emma and Leonie, please feel free to correct me because I'm going to pause to hear your perspectives on the courses. But I think this is very much a private sector kind of lens, understanding the ingredients necessary to finance a renewable project, to make it economic, including kind of exploring the different forms of capital available to successfully finance the project, along with analyzing the revenue models for renewable investors. And then we have a climate policy and investment course that's taught by, so Nadia Zenz teaches that financing renewable energy class, and Lisa Sachs is teaching the climate policy and investment course. And, one thing that Lisa always feels very strongly in is that, of course, it's wonderful that the private sector start investing in renewable energy, but oftentimes where the most capital resides is in the public sector. And you have to provide those motivations, so to speak, for the private sector to make these necessary investments. And that's exactly what Lisa's course is doing, complementing the Financing Renewable Energy course with a climate policy and investment course. So this course explores the many kind of interrelated challenges to investing in energy transition, to the why the big picture is important for really understanding policies or practices at a granular level. So, and then I'm going to touch on kind of also cross-registration, but well, let me do that now, and then I'm going to allow Emma and Leonie to kind of share how they've approached their electives. But another X factor to students coming to Columbia University in general is the idea of cross-registration. And, we are an interdisciplinary school. Climate has to be interdisciplinary in its approach. As we noted, climate change affects various industries, sectors, and aspects of society. So we have to be interdisciplinary, whether it's from a public health lens or a policy lens or, an architecture and urban design lens. And so we do offer or the ability to allow students to cross-register at Columbia University. So if you want to complement the climate core with perhaps a course at Columbia School of Engineering and Applied Sciences as it relates to carbon management, or maybe there's a specific public health course that you're particularly interested in, or we have a sustainability management partner program that's quite popular at the university, and you might be interested in that cross-registration. You do have an opportunity to cross-register. So let me go ahead and pause there. I would love to hear, maybe I always do Emma first. Let's hear, Leonie, can you share with us kind of how you approach the elective journey, given that there's so much flexibility? And I'd love to hear, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, which electives you did decide to select.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as we can see with the presentation, it is just amazing how many electives we can take, like not only in the climate school, but also by cross-registering. It gives us a pretty extensive list in any field. So everyone can definitely find something to tailor the program to their interest. I'm taking the two classes that you mentioned, Alfred, on the next slide. Emma's also taking financing renewable energy. It's indeed more on the private side and how to finance renewable energy projects. A bit of an introduction to modeling too. I guess Emma, you would agree, like we start touching upon how to represent all this in Excel. Super interesting. And the climate policy and investment, it's structured a bit as a seminar. So it's like a large time in class is dedicated to discussion with the classmates and the professor. Super interesting to have everyone's perspective. And we're really learning a lot, thinking, asking important questions about the limitations, the advantages, and how to integrate and scale public and private finance. So I really, really like these two classes. And on top of that, I'm also taking a course named Technology of Renewable Energies. So I think it's in the School of Professional Studies. So it's more of the technical side behind the wind turbines, the solar panels. I'm not planning on transitioning to engineering, but it's super interesting to have this aspect and like have some basic knowledge in relation with all this. And like, for instance, in that class, when the registration opened for climate school students, it was almost already filled, like there were no more spots left. But I discussed it with the professor and he was able to extend the size of the class. So like just think about all the opportunities, and there's nothing that cannot be done if you show that you're motivated.
That's wonderful.
And the last elective I'm taking is energy, geopolitics, and security, also in cross-registration. Super interesting too. So very different perspective. Yeah, I guess that's it. I also really like the ability to have 2 weeks at the beginning of the semester, trying out many courses. That's something I wasn't used to. So when it starts, you can just attend any course for 2 weeks and then decide what you're going to keep studying in the semester. That was really nice.
Yeah, Leonie's referring at Columbia, we call it course shopping, interestingly. And it is, it's really, it can be a lot. I think there's just so many choices. But students, once you get through it, you enjoy the fact that you have that level of flexibility. And Emma, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your elective journey.
Yes, of course. So I agree with everything that Leonie said, honestly. And again, the elective journey is amazing because it gives you the possibility of focusing on what you're really passionate about, which is also the best thing you could do, I feel like, in the last year of your studies. Specifically, again, as I was saying, I'm interested in the energy transition. We discussed the climate justice course. It talks also about climate energy justice, which is extremely important, even if from a business perspective or from a more technical perspective, we almost never discuss it. And then I'm taking two other courses. One is the Financing Renewable Energies with Leonie. And one thing on top of what Leonie said that I want to say is that I talked with two graduates of the Climate and Society course of last year. So from last year's cohort. And one of them told me 100% you have to take a climate finance course. Whatever your background was, that is like one of the most important things that you will take from the climate school. Extremely important in everything you want to do, because nowadays you could say, fortunately, unfortunately, everything is still discussed in terms of money. And then the second course that I'm taking is at the School of International and Public Affairs, so SIPA, and it's a course called Energy Enterprise and Development. And what I love most about the course and every other elective that I'm taking is that my professors are actually in the field, working in the SIPA course, are working specifically as energy consultants, which is extremely interesting because we are actually working on a project to create our own energy enterprise, which is something that is extremely challenging, of course, but they're offering all the help you might need. And at the same time, it's a broad understanding of the energy sector, but also the challenges imposed to you if you want to become an energy entrepreneur or whatever else, of course, in the energy field. So yeah, I feel like the electives journey has been great so far.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you, Leonie, for sharing that. And you have more to do now. Next semester is going to again be kind of an exciting journey in terms of what electives to choose from, which is great. I now want to touch on next year. What we will be doing for the summer semester is a capstone workshop. And so, in terms of the capstone, this is going to be a 3 credit hour requirement. And again, you can classify this as part of the core. And it's definitely the idea of transforming those concepts and actually applying them into practice. And so just to give you an idea of kind of past capstones, in the summer, we've offered a capstone with the United Nations Foundation of Climate and Environment program. We've also worked with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And then the final one that I like to highlight is we worked with a NBC WFLA TV. It's a news station down in the Tampa Bay area of Florida, and Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. And so each project is unique. Each project is asking you to assess a related climate issue. So, for example, the UN project related to climate proofing food systems in the global south and assessing investments in research and innovation for resilient smallholder agriculture. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was assessing the role of enabling conditions on supporting climate adaptation activities. So this goes back to the climate adaptation course. I'm certain what you would be learning in that class would be paramount importance to a capstone of this nature. And then the final one with WFLA TV. And, I know most of you are based in Europe, but it's been fascinating being here in the United States and seeing just how many extreme weather events have been occurring, especially in the Southeast United States, which I'm from the Tampa Bay area. So the sheer number of hurricanes that have been occurring these last few years has been incredible. And so this specific project was assessing the Tampa Bay area's vulnerability compared to other cities along the West Coast. as we glean an explanation of the city's vulnerability under current climate conditions. So these capstones are always very interesting. You would be given a kind of a list of capstone organizations in the early spring semester, and then you would select your top 3 capstone choices. And then hopefully you get your top choice. We can't guarantee it, but oftentimes students do get their top choice. We also have a variety of career resource and professional development opportunities. We have a dedicated career placement officer, as well as a career uh, manager that works closely with you. We host a variety of employer info sessions throughout the year. We also have the All Ivy Environmental and Sustainable Development Career Fair. That's going to be occurring in February. We typically have roughly 90 employers that come to the Columbia University campus, and nearly 1,000 Ivy League students that come specifically for this career fair. We also have an exclusive job list and an alumni directory. And then something else I always like to highlight is we host a variety of skill seminars. And Emma and Leonie, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to register for any of them yet, but like some of them relate to sustainability consulting or getting LEED certified. There's really interesting sustainability skills seminars and networking evenings that we'll be hosting. So those typically begin right away. I'm sorry, I'm putting both of you on the spot. Emma and Leonie, have you had a chance to connect with our career office or register for any of the skill seminars?
Yeah, of course, with the career officer. And I must say to every HEC student, when I was at HEC, I appreciated a lot everything that was done in the career office. At Columbia is skyrocketing. Like you get personalized consultancies with your career advisor. You have a person you can rely on if you have any questions. Dedicated career fairs and skill seminars. I have one tomorrow, so I haven't participated to one yet, but I participated to an employer info session yesterday, which was extremely interesting. And again, it's dedicated to whatever you're interested in, which is climate. So that's also a step forward, I would say, from the typical maybe business and finance proposed seminars or info sessions.
Excellent, Emma. Thank you for that. And Leonie?
Yeah, nothing specific to add. I have a meeting in like an hour with
Oh,
a
great.
career officer, and there's always so many career events going on. They're sharing contacts, so you can get in touch with people in different fields. So yeah, very helpful.
That's excellent. 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 And then this is just to give you, again, the program is extremely interdisciplinary. Obviously, many of you guys are coming to this program or thinking about this program likely from a private sector lens. So, but to give you an idea of just how diverse it is, this is a makeup of both the class of 2022 and 2023. You can see about 31% ended up going into the private sector, about 21% went to nonprofits in the NGO space. Or forgive me, that was the 21% was the public sector. 27% went into the nonprofits and NGO space. So it's a very diverse audience of students. And here's some like recent employers. So we've had students go on to the World Bank, to McKinsey, to UNICEF. Again, it really runs the gamut. The Nature Conservancy, Boston Consulting Group, the City of Los Angeles, CBS News. We have some students that are really deeply passionate about climate communication and they work in journalism roles. So it's a very, very diverse audience in terms of professional roles once post MA Climate and Society. I'll now briefly touch on our financial aid opportunities. So we do have competitive climate school scholarships, and every single year we are trying to increase these opportunities for our admitted applicants. And we also want to highlight we have external fellowships that are also available. My colleague Damaris Diaz is going to in the chat box, highlight the external fellowship directory. We definitely, for those of you joining us today that are interested in fellowships or interested in understanding outside resources, now is the time to start researching these opportunities. And then we also have the Student Financial Service Office that works with our students directly for federal loans, if any of you are US citizens or permanent residents, and then of course, private loans for international students. I always recommend If you are interested in fellowships or scholarships, you should definitely take advantage of the January 15th deadline. But interestingly, as students interested in this double degree program, you actually have to take advantage of the January 15th deadline. So that is going to be your required deadline as HEC students. In terms of the application process, it's very holistic. I want to stress this is not a formulaic review. It's not XGPA times Y standardized test score equals up or down decision. We are going to look at your candidacy holistically, meaning every aspect of your application is going to be carefully reviewed and assessed. So first, you will upload your resume to the online application system. You'll also indicate 2 names and email addresses for letters of reference. One of the references should be an academic reference. If you were completed your undergraduate university degree within the last 5 years. So asking a current professor or a current recent past professor would make the most sense. But you can also, for a second recommendation letter, utilize, for example, a supervisor in a professional role, or if you had a robust internship, that could also be absolutely appropriate. We'll also require for an admissions decision for you to upload your unofficial college transcripts, both from your undergraduate degree as well as your graduate degree. And then we also require, if English is not the language of instruction in your undergraduate university, we would need an English language test score. And so either the TOEFL, the IELTS, or the Duolingo English test. We would need a 100 on the TOEFL, a 7.5 on the IELTS, or a 135 on the Duolingo English test. I'm confident that you'll have the necessary English test requirements given the demands of your graduate education, your business school education being in English. So that's one other nuance. And then finally, the statement of purpose is also going to be critical. Again, I want to reference your deadline would be January 15th, 2025. And feel free, if you want to start an admissions application today, just to open up the application and look a little bit more at the requirements. You're welcome to. In fact, funny enough, I saw somebody that registered for the info session today started an application today as well. So I was particularly pleased to see that. In terms of the statement of purpose, I want to spend a little bit of time on this because I think this is a critical component of your application, and it really is your opportunity to share your perspective and allow the admissions committee to truly understand your motivations for Columbia Climate School. So the statement of purpose prompt indicates that you can complete up to 1,000 words, and we want you to share the key experiences that have contributed to your commitment to work on climate change issues. In addition, what are your academic and professional goals, and what knowledge and skills are you hoping to develop through enrollment in Columbia Climate School? Finally, why is enrollment in the Climate and Society program critical in helping you achieve your goals? And which climate and society core course are you most excited to complete? That's the one X factor I like to note. Don't forget to share which climate core course you're most excited to complete. So maybe it's climate mitigation, maybe it's adaptation. Perhaps you're deeply interested in better understanding climate justice, or the dynamics course and the physics behind climate change you find most compelling. But reflect on which climate core course you're most excited to complete. And the final element, or one piece of advice I like to give to students that are interested in the Climate and Society program, and they always say, what is the admissions committee really looking for? I always say that your statement of purpose, not only is it, and your application itself, not only are you highlighting that you can handle the rigor of the curriculum and that your ultimate goals align with the program. But remember, the admissions committee's job is to also ensure that they are putting together the most robust and dynamic cohort where you are able to learn from one another. And so how do you do that? It's you sharing your perspectives. How are you going to be additive to the learning community? What experiences do you bring that ultimately is going to elevate the overall cohort itself? So that's the one piece of advice I give when you're writing that statement of purpose, is take a moment and pause and think, okay, does the admissions committee truly understand how I'm going to bring value to the cohort? And now I'd love to open up to Q&A. And now is also your time to ask Emma and Leonie as many questions as you like, as they literally just went through this process. If you have any questions about the application process, life transitioning to New York City, by all means, feel free to start typing in the Q&A or in the chat box. I also want to note that you are welcome to schedule a one-on-one appointment with myself if you have additional questions as it relates to the MA Climate and Society program. And then we also have admissions interns that work with the admissions office very closely. Leonie and Emma know these students. They include Rishabh Jain, as well as Gabby Medina and Peyton Hernandez. So if you would like to connect with a current student in the program as well, we have a current student appointment calendar that Damaris Diaz will be pasting into the chat box as well. But let me go ahead and pause and allow, is there any questions among the audience? Any questions about the application process, the program itself? Emma and Leonie, do you guys have anything to add about the application or the program? Feel free.
I would just like to praise the admissions committee because I feel like our cohort is full of people with so many different backgrounds that have accomplished so much during this past years. So I feel like I'm surrounded by so many people that are literally amazing and that are not necessarily finance or business bros, which is
Yes.
a very good thing sometimes.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that, Emma. Yeah. Anything else, Leonie? I'm putting you guys on the spots. I know Damaris has now made sure to highlight one thing I want to note. We highlighted Sheila Foster because Emma gave a shout out to Sheila. So if you guys are interested in reading more about her profile, but let me pause there. Leonie, would you like anything else to add?
No, just to say that they can also contact us if they have questions, like about
Oh,
the degree, of course.
I really appreciate that. What I'm going to do is share this video with our colleagues at HEC. Specifically, I believe Kristen's on the call now, so I'll make sure to share it with Kristen and Nadia and share the recordings. And actually, that's very kind of you guys. This would go, if you're okay with me sharing your email addresses, just in case, that would be phenomenal. And we'll make sure to do that. But the other elements that Damaris did share was the external fellowship directory. It's a public Google Doc. Feel free to review that. There's a specific tab dedicated to international students or students who would be on an F1 visa here in the United States. And then finally, we also have the current student appointment and the one-on-one appointment with myself. So if you want to speak to a current student that's working with the admissions office, definitely schedule that appointment, or feel free to take advantage of scheduling time with myself. I'm happy to go over the application process in more detail, or if you feel you had a question that's a little bit more personal, we can definitely go into that. And thank you so much, Kristen. We'll definitely share the slides along with the video recording as well. We really do appreciate you joining. And Lucy asked, how difficult is it to stay in the US after the program for international students? Thank you. So I can definitely take this. So Lucy, one thing to note is it is a STEM designated program which greatly helps when it comes to securing a role here in the United States. So typically you have 1 year of OPT after an F1 visa, but with the STEM designation, you're able to apply to extend that 1 year of OPT by an additional 2 years, giving you a full 3 years of OPT. I will say we do have a number of international students who have remained here in the United States and secured roles here in the United States. It's very important to start working with our career office early, though, and especially having conversations perhaps around the electives. And, frequently our career office also highlights, which isn't, quite frankly, with this audience being so quantitative in nature anyways, as business school students, but highlights the fact that you should have a more quantitative lens as well when you're looking for roles here in the United States on that OPT or on that F1 visa. So it depends on the type of roles that you're looking to secure, but we absolutely have some students that have remained here in the United States and are working. Could you elaborate more on the career prospects for sustainable finance? Absolutely. What I would love to do, Frederick, is my colleague, actually, I can do it as well now that I'm no longer sharing my screen, but we have a MA in, I'm gonna take you to a website, specifically an employer website, MA in Climate and Society. One moment. This website, I think, is especially helpful because it shares with you kind of a pie chart of a listing. So we have had, for example, students that went to Boston Consulting Group or McKinsey. We've also had students go to Morgan Stanley. If you click on that website, and then it takes you to a pie chart that shows you over the last 2 years where students have gone on to work. And if you specifically focus on the private sector and click on that segment of the pie chart, it can then give you an idea of the private organizations that have hired our students and also the specific. Oh, great. We did the same thing. Thank you, Damaris. It also gives you, oh, forgive me. I might have only sent it to Damaris. That's why. Appreciate you, Damaris. But it gives you an idea of the specific private organizations that have hired our students, and many of them are finance related. We are only building out that. I want to emphasize, so you'll notice that I highlighted climate finance, and I love that Emma did a beautiful job, and Leonie, kind of highlighting the importance of it. We are only going to be building out that curriculum in our elective journey. So if you saw a presentation from us last year, when I did a presentation specifically for the HEC students, I never mentioned the climate finance electives because they didn't exist, and now they do exist. And so, Frederick, I want to emphasize we're only going to be expanding that moving forward at the climate school because we recognize how important it is. Excellent question. Any other questions? I really do appreciate your time, both Emma and Leonie. Thank you guys so much. I really do. I can't say thank you enough for this. We are going to be sharing a recording with the students that actually registered for the session. You'll be getting a recording of this, but I'm also going to be sharing it with Kristen and our colleagues at HEC, so that way they can share it with anybody else that expressed an interest in this double degree opportunity. But again, I want to say thank you, Emma and Leonie, for your time and sharing your perspective. You truly elevate the content because you guys are the ones that are in the learning community. So again, I want to say thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope everybody has a phenomenal evening in Europe. And Emma and Leonie, expect an email from me because I have follow-up for you guys. So I so appreciate you guys. All right, thank you.